Hey, what's up? I'm Marty Yang, creator of the Lucky Brain podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoy. Ashley, thank you so much for doing this. We're rolling. Okay, so we met at a networking event in Alhambra, and I was just telling you earlier, right before we started, that I'm real big on energy, and your energy was real good. Your Instagram name is thatconnector. Yeah. I'm assuming that networking is something that is valuable in your life.
Yes, most definitely. Coming into like the Instagram space, I had like a personal one that I had started back when Instagram first started. And I was like, what goes with my brand? And everyone's like, you're this social butterfly. Like you're the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Somehow you're always connecting people. And I was like, I guess I'm that connector. Like that's me.
I love that. Yeah. And
plus I didn't want to call myself like the trash lady, the trash girl.
Is that what you do for work?
I do. I talk trash for a living.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I currently am a government affairs manager for Athens Services, which is a local family owned and operated trash hauling company. Okay. And literally that's what we do is we pick up refuse, whether it's at your house, at a residential unit or a commercial unit, construction. And then we use ways and technology to recycle it and do the best we can to take any material that could be reused or composted or things like that and find alternative places for it than a landfill. Yeah, that's
really good work because it seems like a lot of the trash just goes into the ocean and even plastics and things like that. And so it's creating, have you heard of the Pacific Garbage Patch?
Yeah. I'd love to go see it one day.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting to where is it? It's just floating around out there in the Pacific somewhere?
I couldn't give you the exact coordinates, but I think it's, like where the streams just kind of like come together and it just like creates this place where it all collects.
Yeah, there's a really interesting young entrepreneur. His name is, what is his name? He has the ocean cleanup. His name is, what is his name? I'm forgetting his name now.
There's a few. There's one that I'm a huge fan of. His name is Ryan's Recycling. Oh, okay. And I think he's like 8 years old. Wow. And he lives in Dana Point, and he does like beach cleanups like on a Tuesday afternoon.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Does he have Instagram?
He does. Anything? It's under Ryan's Recycling.
Ryan's Recycling.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love anybody who's trying to make the planet cleaner. I love that so much.
Yeah.
So coming back to your line of work, so that always interested me, or I always had a question about that whenever I see different like trash trucks like moving across. So I always thought they were like owned by the city or owned by the state, but it seems like they're privately owned. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I think originally municipalities used to have like the ability to have their own infrastructures, right, with their public works team. But with California in particular, there's so many changing laws, whether it's, AQMD who sets like the air quality, and that goes with like fuel emissions. So then you have to be on top of, proper mechanics and having the right type of vehicles on the road. An average trash truck could cost $300,000 and up. Yeah. So for a municipality to maintain those operations, just from like getting your business off the ground or getting that infrastructure off the ground, right? And then you have your your staff, your team, you have the cost of containers. There's all these things that go into it. That maintaining that service, I don't think a lot of municipalities could keep up with. So they started bringing in and partnering with organizations like Athens, who started out as a family of, 3, a gentleman with his sons and his grandsons, 1 truck, and then it just eventually grew and grew.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's a really huge problem with trash in Cambodia. I'm part Cambodian. My dad lives over there. And
oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Have you been there?
Yes. I've been there twice. Once in 2011 after I graduated college, and then once last year. So going over there, I mean, it's a beautiful country, and it's starting to get more westernized, which is, I guess, good and bad depending on how you look at it. But it's still dirty. It still like doesn't have a good infrastructure when it comes to like picking up trash, cleaning up the street sweeping and things like this. So now I was talking to my dad, like, why doesn't somebody like, an Athens family come into Cambodia? And that could probably be a really valuable service. I mean, because who doesn't want cleaner streets? Like the place that you live in, it's a wonderful feeling. And you can really tell this in downtown LA when you are in an area that's just like really clean, because you can walk literally a block or two over and it's just dirty, filled with homeless people, and it's like very contrasting. So how did you get into doing this line of work?
Well, I think people who've known me have always said I'm a good trash talker, so it was like a really good segue. No, I mean, I don't think that I ever really first saw myself, working for a trash company, but it's kind of just crazy how my life and the series of events, it's good to take a moment and like stop, right? And look at like where you're at, because we're so focused on like where we're going, right? Like, oh, I got to get to that next like step and that next phase, that next accomplishment. Yeah. But to stop and think like, man, where did I just come from? Like, what did I just experience and all these different things, and then how it all kind of weaves and like comes together to where you're currently at. Yeah, it is amazing when you're able to give yourself the time to be present enough to like think about all those things and how the universe just kind of guides you down different paths. And
very strange and very beautiful as well.
Yeah. So how I ended up at Athens stemmed from my previous work as an employee of the California State Legislature. And that's kind of, I guess, the long and short version of it.
Okay, cool. Because you went to USC, right? What did you study there?
So I just graduated from USC, fight on.
Fight on, right.
I got my executive master in leadership through Price, the
Very
public
cool.
policy school, yeah.
Very cool. So is that considered business, or is that like more politics?
So it's through the School of Public Policy, which I guess is where like the political heads come out of, right? But I wouldn't say that it was a political program at all. Okay. We had a cohort of 25 people, and it was a 2-year program, and you had a well thought out group of individuals that were C-suite, that ran multi-billion, trillion-dollar companies. Wow. You had people who were in philanthropy, who were, directors of nonprofits. Yeah. You had folks like me who were in the private sector. You had people who were in public education. You had first responders. We had folks from LAPD, captains, lieutenants, the fire department. So it was a really well thought out, cohesive, collective group of people that all were hand chosen to be a part of cohort 12.
Wow.
My cohort, yeah.
What were the discussions like in that classroom?
Oh, man. So it being an executive program meant that it was structured on a weekend meeting. So you'd go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 8 to 5. And you almost needed like a whole week to recover after the weekend, because your mind was just like blown from, the people that you're sharing this experience with.
Yes. Because
they're all highly qualified, amazing individuals. And then you had all these like guest speakers that came in and, things like that to talk about everything under the sun, under leadership. I mean, we had an improv coach come in, and we literally just did improv all day, and how that works with communication, and how as a leader, being able to read the room and understand your communication style with someone who might not speak your same language or process information differently. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When you think about, say, for example, like bosses that you've had who were successful in like leading the team or whatever, they're always their leadership skills, in my experience, they've always been, you know, a certain confident type of person, and I think that's extremely helpful. And being able to improvise, like think on the spot, when it comes to different solutions that might be viable, I think is very important to be successful, because like you said, there's all these moving parts in life, and you have to kind of be able to improvise and go with the flow in order to, you know, successfully complete whatever that you're trying to complete. So, well, congratulations on that. When did you graduate?
August. I think that was my last semester.
Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
And then you recently just purchased a house too.
I did.
Tell me about that process.
During a pandemic, I graduated and like.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
So like for like first time home buyers that might be watching this show, like what are some of the challenges? What are some of the wins? What are some of the lessons to be learned from that process?
Oh gosh. So I think it's important to go with your intuition. I have like this little Jiminy Cricket, I call it. And usually when something's not right, it will kind of like, hey, like it'll like fester.
You'll be uneasy.
Yeah, I'll be uneasy. And when, gosh, I had a very interesting experience, because I think we all know a real estate agent or two. And it's a very personal experience. And you have to pick people that you trust, and that's going to be a part of that experience, because they see everything about you. Like you have to show them your good, the bad, everything. And be honest too. Like it's your home. So being able to find the person that knows you. So I bring this up because I had an experience where someone really close to me assumed that they were going to be my agent.
Oh, wow.
But I had made the decision that that person wasn't the right fit for me. Not because they weren't a good agent, but because we had different styles.
Sure. And
things like that. And so that was a really hard conversation to tell that person, like, I'm sorry, but I've decided to choose a different person and things like that. So that was kind of my first experience. But I'm so glad with the group that I went with. I went with the Camacho group out of Remax Masters, I believe. And they were just such a great blend. I actually went to high school with the younger agent, and then the older agent was his dad, who had a lot of knowledge. And they were just like yes people. Like it wasn't about them. It was about, well, could you see yourself living here? Do you, not like, I think you should like this. It was like, let's figure out what you like, because
wonderful.
You're the one that's going to have to be here.
Yeah.
So I also had an interesting experience with a lender. And I went with a referral from someone, and this is where my gut feeling came in. And I just kept saying to my realtor, I said, is this normal? Is that normal? They're like, well, if something doesn't feel right to you, like we're not at the point where, you know, we can't change directions now. And so I think by law, they have to send you kind of like this breakdown of like how the lending process works. And so I was going through it, and I'm, given what I do, like I read contracts all day long, and I make sure that things are in compliance. So I literally read every single word that I'm going to sign my life to for the next 30 years, right? And so something just didn't feel right. So I was going through this like brochure that she had sent me, and it said shop around for a lender. And I was like, you can shop around for a lender? I thought they all just kind of did the same thing. And come to find out, you should at least get 3 opinions. And that's the thing too, like everyone's going to tell you what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and everyone's experience is different. And I would just say when it comes to buying your home, go with your gut. If it feels right, great. And if not, then something probably isn't right.
Yeah.
So with COVID, it became really kind of challenging, right, to go look at houses and whatnot. I started the process, I think like in April, and I was supposed to go. It's kind of a crazy story how it happened, and my life kind of has several of these types of events. But I was supposed to go to a wedding in Cancun in June, and we got the call that the venue had canceled due to the virus. And so we assumed, our flights are booked, we'll get a refund, whatever. So we log on to contact the company. The website's down and like, call this 800 number. And we're like, oh man, this doesn't look good.
Right.
So ended up having to go through a process to get it refunded. And then, let's see, 2 weeks before June, we get a week before the wedding would have taken place. We get a call from United that said, hi, this is just a friendly reminder that your flight for Mexico at this time is still good, so we hope you'll show up. And we're like, what?
Yeah.
That's weird. I thought we got refunded and everything. So come to find out, like, we still had our plane tickets. So if we didn't use them, we kind of lose them. And this is like right back in when things were starting to like lift up again with COVID, the restrictions and whatnot. So it's kind of like, what do we want to do? Like, how spontaneous are you feeling? And I'm like, who knows what's going to happen next? I mean, if we can make it work, let's make it work. So we ended up going.
Wow.
In June and booking a trip. It was kind of one of those things like, if all these things can fall in line, then we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And, I was able to get the time off. We were able to find a resort that had just opened for a stellar price too. So we made it happen. We had a red eye and everything. So circling back to why this is relevant, the first weekend we went out and looked at houses. Didn't find anything we liked. Second weekend we found this house that had just listed. And this is the kind of realtor I had. Like, he was a yes man. Like, he was going to make whatever we wanted work. So we found this one. We didn't even have an appointment. But we're like, it's right next to this other one that we're going to look at. So we'll just, like, swing by and, like, we're going to get you in the house kind of a thing. And we're like, we really want this one. Like, we really, like, I can already tell, like, this is my house.
Yeah.
So, like, my real estate agent's like, I'm going to make this happen. So he made it happen. Very and then cool. We're like, okay, that's the one we like. He's like, well, we have this other one. Like, let's go still look at it. And we're like, okay.
Yeah.
But we like the other one. They're like, let's just go look at it.
Yeah.
So we did. And the day that we looked, the last weekend of looking, the house I ended up purchasing was the last house that we were going to not so much go with.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we got on a red eye that night, left to Cancun, and did the whole, negotiating from Cancun. And then when we came back, we got service and had the text message like, congratulations, you're opening escrow on Monday.
Wow.
So for me, it was kind of surreal in the sense like, I went on this trip and now, I'm trying to enjoy this. And now did I just buy a house? Like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, can I get out of it? Like, what should I do? And then I just kind of decided like, that's what I wanted and had been manifesting. And if I didn't do it now, when would I do it?
Yeah.
So
when you say lending, you should get 3 opinions or 3 different, what was it? 3 different looks or something like that.
Yeah. Sorry. Thank you for bringing that back up. My story is kind of like, can go all over the place. So I bring up Cancun and the wedding because I had called my friend and she had just bought her second house. And so I was like, oh, I should ask her who her lender was. Her lender was her father-in-law, whose son I grew up with since we were 12 years old.
Wow. And
I was like, how crazy was it that we would have been in Cancun with them for their wedding during the time that this was happening?
Yeah.
Okay, it gets a little crazier.
All right.
So I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of Mark? So I called Mark and he was like, oh, well, send me over like, whoever you're talking to, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, I did. And he goes, I sit next to this person in the same office. And I was like, oh man, like that would be my luck. Like, shoot.
Yeah.
And so he's like, there's difference between lenders where they have volume and they have to make commission. Their rates are higher because they don't have as much volume.
Gotcha.
He was a volume person. The person that I was with that I kept like saying like something isn't right, what she told me when we sat down, the rate percentage versus once she had me hooked and invested was all of like 1% or 1.5% different.
Wow.
And on a loan for that much money, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure.
And I was like, that's kind of a big thing to overlook.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was so glad that like the universe in some weird way was like telling me that. So sorry, I digressed with all of
No worries. And when you say lending, is it like, okay, so these are the people that are going to lend you the money for the loan?
Yeah, your mortgage.
Your mortgage traditionally isn't like people like go with banks for lending, but there's also different companies that provide lending service as well.
Yes. So it's like when you get a car, right? You get a car loan and you want to be as competitive as possible. And so some people will offer you a better interest rate, based on whatever circumstances. And so you can shop around and find the best deal. So you have like the Bank of Americas, you have your credit unions, and then you have your private like lending institutions.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. So once you get like the lending, how does that tie into escrow? Is lending different than escrow?
Yes.
Okay.
So you have usually an agent, and then you have the lending officer, and then you have an escrow officer.
Okay.
That are all involved.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Escrow, what exactly is that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm still not sure.
Okay. It's the closing process though, essentially, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I was wondering, I'm like, what's the difference between lending and the escrow?
I should probably have a better idea.
Yeah.
But they're basically the ones I think that, like, they're the mutual person. So they're working with the person that's selling the home and the person that's buying the home, and they're making sure that everything, I think, is copacetic.
Yeah.
On a legal front.
Mm-hmm.
Deeds have to be changed. Things have to be filed, with the county assessor and, all those types of things.
Yeah. It's almost like a due diligence process, another due diligence process.
Yes.
Very cool. I mean, geez, like the process seems like it's a pretty big process. How long before you actually purchased the home had you started to think about like, hey, I want to buy a home? Has this been like a 5-year goal, or did it come up spur of the moment? Like, hey, I'm feeling, it's the right time to buy a home. What was that for you?
So I think for me, homeownership has always been tied to like my independence, right? And so that's always been something that I wanted. Let's see. So a year ago, I met with a lender just to go through the process. So you can meet with a lender and they'll give you kind of like I want to say like a soft quote of, you take them like your credit and, your pay stubs and your W-2s and things like that. And then they'll kind of say like, well, based on this, here's kind of like the category that you'd fall into for like what you can look to purchase at. So when that happened to me a year ago, I didn't like the numbers. And I was like...
The numbers for borrowing money, the numbers...
For what I qualified for. It was like, what am I going to... Buy a bus? Like, am I going to live on a bus? Like, in California, like, I can't afford anything. Yeah. It was so discouraging at first. But that's not my personality. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to wait a year. And I'm going to figure this out. And a year from now, I put some money in a CD that had a really good interest rate at the time. And I said, when a year from now, when that's ready and available, I think it'll be the right time. Again, my little Jiminy Cricket was telling me this. And it was. So the money that I had saved for my down payment that was gaining interest became available in June. I found the house in June.
Wow.
closed everything in July, and I just moved in August.
Amazing.
So it's like all these things just like
Kind of
lined up.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I have to tell you, I got a 2.375 rate.
Okay.
On my house.
Okay. Is that good? Is that bad?
That is so good.
So good. Okay.
So good. Anything below like 3% is like
good.
Yeah. I don't say it to brag or like or boast. I say it to don't settle. Like if something doesn't feel right, it's probably because it isn't.
Yeah. And
if you think it's possible, then make it possible. And I wasn't going to settle for anything less than 2.5, and I didn't.
There we go. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing that. We're coming up on like 25 minutes now, and so these cameras only run for 30 minutes. So
oh, sorry.
No worries.
I'm Italian. I can talk a lot.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. We'll wrap this up here. I think that you said so many valuable things about like, you know, the home buying process, and, you know, if something doesn't feel right, then it's probably not. And you should probably like check your intuition, check your gut, check your Jiminy Cricket, because again, like you said, something's not right. Probably isn't. Cool. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hey, what's up? I'm Marty Yang, creator of the Lucky Brain podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much. Hope you enjoy.